It's late 2013 and the Middle East is dealing with the consequences of the Arab Spring.
Live Mubarak! Live Mubarak!
What began as political unrest in Tunisia quickly spread across much of the region.
Either this is the first Arab revolution of the 21st century, or it will be brutally suppressed.
Amid mass protests and bloodshed, Aussie journalist Peter Greste is sent to report in Egypt for Al Jazeera.
What we're seeing is a growing sense of unease, of disorder, of insecurity.
The posting, which was meant to last a fortnight, quickly became a 400-day nightmare. As Australia watched on, Greste was dragged into a politically motivated trial and then sentenced to 7 years jail for his journalism.
7 years for Peter.
The issue of the Al Jazeera journalists in Egypt, we've been clear both publicly and privately that they should be released.
Now, 10 years on from his release, Peter's fight for freedom has been captured in a brand new film starring Richard Roxburgh.
The only way through this is to make a case to the world.
Now is the time for pressure.
Please welcome Peter Greste and Richard Roxburgh. Gents, it's great to see you both. Peter, when you were imagining who would play you in the movie based on your life, did Richard come to mind?
We sometimes had these... Well, I was kind of thinking of Chris Hemsworth, but... But I figured he'd have to buff up a bit to make the grade. So. No, look, at least I get to look good on TV, on air, on screen.
I think, Richard, what about you? If someone played your life, would you get Hemsworth or would you try to get Peter in?
Oh, look, it'd probably have to be David Wenham because we're constantly mistaking each other all the time. In fact, my wife mistook David for me.
Oh, hello.
That's a saucy story.
Yeah. No, tell us.
For 3 years.
Yeah.
For 3 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you're playing a real person, like how do you prepare for that? Did you follow him around and watch his every move?
Look, it's very different depending on the character. Okay, if the person's really a sort of big identity in the public imagination, so playing somebody like Roger Rogerson, for instance, he was he figured heavily in people's minds. We felt from the get-go in the story about Peter's life that it was not ever going to be an act of impersonation, and that wasn't kind of important. That what was important was that it was a kind of, I guess, a feel-alike rather than a look-alike contest.
You didn't want to shave your head, did you?
Well, he actually does. It does happen. So that did happen. That part of it I did affect. But
And when Rox said that, because I asked him about this on set, I asked him if it was weird having me there, and he said exactly that. And it was really an opportunity for me to let it go. I didn't have to worry about seeing any kind of particular verbal tick that I had. I didn't have to expect to see my own walk on screen.
Yeah, right.
And basically let Rox and the rest of the crew take that story and create what I think is a brilliant work of art.
But it is still you, and it's no secret, Richard, that you are a brilliant actor.
Well...
But, Peter, what did he get wrong?
Let's take some time.
Let's slow down, shall we?
I lost a lot of weight. I got a bit skinnier than I think. Yeah, look, it is... There are a lot of details that only I would recognise that aren't quite there in the film. But and obviously the film takes a degree of licence with the story. But in really profound, essential ways, they nail it in ways that I've actually found really quite discombobulating when I first saw it.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it's based on your memoir, First Casualty, was it hard for you to watch?
The first time, yes. Yeah, it was. I didn't really know quite what to expect. I mean, I've lived and relived this experience a lot over the years. I've spoken about it. If anything, I've probably built a bit of a career around it. And that's a way of, as I said, of leveraging that experience and turning it against the Egyptians who tried to shut us up. But I never really quite knew how this was going to come out. I've been involved a lot through the production process. I'd spoken a lot to the screenwriter, Peter Duncan. And so I was very closely involved with the project, but I just didn't quite know what to expect and how it would turn out. And in ways that, as I said, I didn't really anticipate it. It really got me in the guts, and brought me back to that prison cell.
Richard, you said you wouldn't want to relive this. Making this was tough for you.
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, it was a really grueling shoot. In a sense, it had to be because because if you're doing it, it would just feel kind of really wrong to be doing it in the lap of luxury. It was a tough shoot, and the other weird thing about it is, it was 100% POV film, which I'd never experienced before. But so
what does that mean?
So Creve, the director, explained it to me like this. So he wanted literally every frame to be from Peter's perspective, which means that I am in, and I'm sorry to the viewers who are going to go and watch the film, I am in every single frame of the film. Which also means that, in a normal film you get a scene off, you get a day off, you get a couple of days off or something, but so there was literally not a moment off. Wow. Which means that you kind of after a short time, you're really quite kind of reeling from one thing to another, which I think was useful in terms of exhaustion and, just being in the seat of it experientially.
So David Wenham's in every scene, is that what you're saying? God, that's incredible. So, yeah.
Oh, well, look, good luck with the film. Thanks so much for coming in. You can see The Correspondent in cinemas from April the 17th. In the meantime, please thank Peter Greste and Richard Roxburgh.